So on the agenda today, we have a few releases. So we've got cold storage here. Cold storage is a supplement for Mothership that is focused on items, and this is from the same person, Void Inc., who created Heat Signature. We'll talk about that. Also within our community, there is the Spring Indie Bundle, which is being done by Lazarus. Has things from himself as well as Windblown Vagrant and a few other creators, and so that's worth looking at if you're looking for like derelict ships and ways to play them as well. And then another release is the Watchdog Magenta, and this is a really cool concept for people who are looking for extra like media and content that plays out around Prospero's dream. So that should be really cool. Another release is Bite the Hand. Bite the Hand is a TTRPG using a lot of commonalities and mechanics from Mothership. And then we'll briefly remind people about TripTech, Game Jam, and also the Table Jam. Talk a little bit about what's happening in the campaign at length community. And then the main topic for today is looking at how androids can impact gameplay. So as a warden, you have to be a little bit aware of if someone wants to be an android, what type of android are they? And also some things about if they do want to be an android, what do I have to be aware of within the game that I'm planning or have planned, if that's the case? And how can I make it like a little bit more interesting for them? And earlier today, I had a chat with Waco Matrixo, who created Decagon and Aurora and Cryoset. And I think there's one other that I always forget of the things that he's created, as well as he's done things for Mothership Month 25. And we chatted about this question. So I'm curious to see what people think of some of his answers regarding androids. So that's what's on the agenda today. Hopefully you guys can stick around and hear about all these different things. So the first part is cold storage. So cold storage is a really, really cool concept that by someone within the community. So it's done by Void Inc. And Void Inc. He gave us a bit of a preview of this, not last Sunday, but the Sunday before. And the blurb here reads, turn your crew into specialists or liabilities. A brutal gear expansion for Mothership that rewrites how progression works. Each item is more than equipment. It's a gateway to power, profit, or catastrophic failure, depending on who's using it. From black market biotech and illegal comms warfare to an exo armor, surgical rigs, and reality-breaking tech, this book ties skills directly to gear, unlocking deeper, riskier, and far more creative play. Sell organs, harvest alien life, hijack systems, and rewrite encounters. And it is huge as well. It is a massive booklet. So it is 132 pages with over 100 items across dozens of disciplines. And I'll let people have a look at the page. It's linked in the description below. And the really cool thing about this is something that is mentioned at the top here, which is it ties skills directly to gear. And what this means is that with every single item within this book is that it means that if you don't have a skill that's related to this item, is that you will use it just like anyone else. So if you imagine like a bioscanner of some description, is that you can scan things and you get some information about it, but then maybe there's a whole lot of logs or results that you have no idea how to interpret. But if you were someone who is an expert in that particular field with a bioscanner, this could be like a biologist or zoologist or someone who knows that would be likely to be able to read this particular device and the logs that come out of it, then you can get an even better understanding of what is going on, a better understanding of what the results are, which I thought was really, really cool. And what is really, really impressive is that something that he doesn't actually mention in his blurb is that for every skill that is in the Mothership Player Survival Guide, every one of those skills has at least an item that works in this particular way. And which I thought was like amazing, and he's done such a great job of like going through all of these things. And I think it would be really, really great to have that concept of going, okay, here is something randomly that we found, and then maybe you hand it to someone else in your party knowing that they would be able to use it in a better way. It also helps wardens as well, that wardens can go, okay, well, who is in my party? Where are we? And what are they likely to find? And here's some random thing that they come across, and that, you know, you can kind of plant things that would be interesting for the party to have. Yeah, and there's, of course, I gave you an example, which was something about technology, but there's a whole lot of things that are very, very different. So there's ones related to mysticism as well. And of course, you can imagine there are things more to do with religion and stuff like this. And yeah, I think it's such a great supplement. It will be so very, very cool. And at the moment, it is coming soon. And I really, really look forward to it. And here's a bit of a preview of what this looks like. So one of them here is, you can see the skill at the top of the page here. So we've got military training. And then the item here is Ghost Cloak Tactical Suit. And it says that, so you can read, of course, a description of the item, how much it costs, the AP, the like O2 as well, if applicable. And then also it gives you, okay, what happens McLee. So in this case, it becomes advantage on speed checks. And here are some like special things that it can do for anyone. However, at the bottom here, it's got military training. And here is the extra thing that you can do. So here it talks about like, you can do things twice a day. The invisibility lasts for longer. And also you can, in this case, you may attack without breaking invisibility with this cloaking device. Whereas in this case, if you do not have this skill, if you attack, the effect immediately ends, I should say. So that's really cool. Yeah. You got some really like interesting one. Here, mycology. This is called Last Witness Playback Unit, a cranial interface linked to a flickering CRT tablet that converts residual neural activity in a corpse into fragmented audiovisual memories. Awesome. So good. And then again, you've got, okay, what does it actually do? You can roll an intelligence check, displays a random memory. During the procedure, everyone except trained psychologists must make a sanity save, and uses two uses per battery charge. So it tells you a little bit about how this mechanically works. And then also, if you do have psychology, make an intelligence check, and on success, choose a memory to display at will. So it'll be very interesting to see here. So as a warden, memories associated with trauma may appear blurred, fragmented, or severely disorienting, typically presenting only partial clues or hints rather than a coherent recording. And this is at warden's discretion. So yeah, I think this is a really cool concept for an item, and also a really cool concept as a supplement as well. Also art, you got musical instrument. What does it do? Also for computers, you've got what looks like the USB drives that your company always tells you to never have on you and never use. So yeah, skills in this case for piloting as well. But yeah, for every single skill you can see there is an item at least. Taps into CB. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So it should be really cool, really great supplement, something that instantly goes, okay, here is someone in our party that has this skill. Now they can do this interesting thing. And hopefully that item plus the skill and this extra thing that you can do means that you can perhaps do something interesting within that adventure or that session, or potentially stuff in future sessions as well. So yeah, that's really great. That's called cold storage. And yeah, link is below as always. Okay. The next thing is this spring indie bundle. And like I said, this is organized by Lazarus, but also has some cool Mothership related stuff. So we've got like basically saving 70%, which is amazing. And my sort of, Mothership things are, first of all, Oni, which is a really cool pamphlet, adventure, stealth, social stealth delve, and inspired by Japanese Oni folklore, which is a cool concept. Then Managing the Expendables is a great module that talks about, it's like all about derelicts and finding valuable salvage and monstrous entities, also with some amazing art as well. Then related to that is Hex Crawling the Void, which is very new. And this is like a toolkit that allows for hex crawl trope play for Mothership. And you can see here that you can generate outposts, generate systems, and at this highest level, generate sectors as well. And that is all within that Spring Indie bundle. Definitely worth getting if you're doing any sort of campaign that is traveling around space and wanting to include either derelicts and all of the things that you may find inside them, as well as Hex Crawling the Void, which is a toolkit around how you can travel and the dangers of travel in space as well. So yeah, so that's worth, it's got 4 days left on that. The next thing was something that popped up that I hadn't seen, which is the Watchdog Magenta is the most prolific newspaper on Prospero's dream, for better or for worse. This supplement is designed to accompany your copy of A Pound of Flesh. When one of the module's major events comes to pass, you can now offer your players the front page of today's paper, so read all about it. These 9 pages come complete with advertisements and secondary headlines that offer a peek into the more familiar events of everyday life on the dream. And so from here, you can see a little bit about the paper itself, who runs it, and a bit about them. And then you have these examples of the front page itself, which is really cool. I thought this was kind of a great idea here. I love like the advertisements. Any like in-game advertisements, I'm a total sucker for just learning about them or just reading them and seeing like these in-jokes, for lack of a better way of putting it. So yeah, if you've read A Pound of Flesh, is that it does have like some major events that happen sometimes depending on your player's actions, sometimes not. And I guess that these newspaper front pages are representing those. So yeah, I love this. I just realized, is this like what is the bottom here? Savages, Karkanids. It almost looks like a baseball game at the bottom here, like a baseball box score. But yeah, so stuff like that is great. I love it. It's awesome. I love how the papers also have a price. They got 4 credits each. Digital copies have been available in the past, but the Watchdog is now a hard copy only in an attempt to combat piracy. Brilliant. So a very good reason why you might have a physical paper in this case. But yeah, so that's pay what you want for the Watchdog Magenta. And that was done by Jet Wright, who has written a few adventures for Mothership. And then also, I think they have got a backer kit campaign going on at the moment or coming soon that I mentioned, I think, in a previous stream. That sounds pretty interesting as well. But I'm not sure if it's related to Prospero's stream. I can't quite remember. Okay. And the next thing was Bite the Hand. So Bite the Hand, the easiest description is just to read out the blurb here. So Bite the Hand is a lightweight TTRPG system for telling stories of rebellion and vengeance in gritty, dark future cities by using Mothership's Panic engine to bring a touch of horror to the cyberpunk genre. With over 40 types of cybernetics, over 50 items like weapons and armor, and several pages of GM tools, the Bite the Hand core rulebook contains everything you will need to experience the tense cyberpunk action at your tables. Okay, so when I described this earlier, I described it as like X-Files-y-ish. I was thinking of a different game. This one is more, leans into the cyberpunk genre a lot more. And I wonder if they got a picture of it here. So you've got these classes as well. So you've got, instead of android, marine, teamster, and scientist, here you've got rogue, soldier, technician, turncoat. So I guess soldier and technician, they've got, so soldier, army, so marine kind of, and then technician. So they've pushed together scientists and engineers together. And then turncoat, more like corporate, and then rogue, yeah, street urchins, thieves, assassins, spies, journalists. But yeah, it sounds kind of cool. I'd love to give this a go at some point. It'd be a lot of fun, I think, especially with some of the cybernetics that they mention here. And also, like, they've got like different tiers to them as well. And just like I mentioned, like there is some stress mechanic just pretty close to Mothership as well. And I believe the stats are really close as well. They've got like a mind stat that sort of would represent what would be, I guess, like fear or sanity, perhaps, depending on the situation. Oh yeah, here we go. We got firewall as well. So I guess there's like some, like in terms of like hacking, being hacked into. And then, yeah. And then I think skill must be a generalized thing towards maybe your specialist idea, specialist skill, perhaps. So yeah, sounds kind of cool. Interesting, and also, I guess, familiar, being Mothership as well. So that is like the releases and some of the news here. The other thing here is we've got a couple of jams going on. We've got the TripTech game jam that is finishing next Sunday, I guess this would be. And yeah, so, a little bit next Friday instead. Yeah, so I'm sure after that happens, there'll be a few releases of these games. And yeah, it's quite a lot of people joined, and it'll be interesting to see what comes out of it. It'll be really cool to see some of the submissions and stuff like that. And then the other jam that is going on, so is the table jam, which quite very, very simply is you create a table and you put it up on itch as a published piece of content, and that can be designed for any system. It can be for an original system if you want. It can be system agnostic, and also can be compatible with multiple. And it's really, really flexible. In this particular jam, unlike TripTech, there's no judging involved at all. It's mainly to sort of push you to create something. And so if you got this ends a little bit later, if I remember correctly. So April 13th, which will be not next Wednesday, but the Wednesday after. So in the next couple of weeks, if you find yourself wanting to create something or wanting an excuse to create something, then Table Jam could be quite cool, just to get your creative juices flowing. And and they talk about what these could be. So it could be, dice rolls, card draws, coin flips, digital randomizers, or something else that is random or pseudo-random. So there's some really great, I'm sure people will come up with some awesome ideas in there. It sounds like plenty of fun. All right. And then, of course, we have our campaign at Lent community. 2 weeks ago, that's 3 weeks ago now. I should change it. 3 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. So, a few weeks ago, we had Windblown Vagrant, Jamie, who was talking about his release of Hexcrawling the Void, which is as part of that bundle that I mentioned just before. We had Void Inc. Mauricio, who talked about Heat Signature, which is one of his releases regarding weapons. That the way he did that with weapons was like looking through the types of weapons in the player's survival guide and then using them as like archetypes or types or groups of weapons, and then coming up with like alternatives or similar ones, as well as it includes, what's the right word here? Includes like extras. So adding on like scopes, scopes, silencers, all sorts of things that you can add to guns. And then it also includes some different types of ammunition as well. So that's worth checking out as well. And then, so last week we had a Saturday meetup, and we had Gabriel Watchdog, who was chatting to us about some of the stuff that he's produced. And it was really great to have him on, but I think I'll probably get him on a Sunday as well. And also got a gaming session within the community, which will happen next Sunday. And if you're interested, have a look. There'll be a maximum number of players, so keep that in mind. And but if you are interested, let me know. And then if more than enough people, if there are enough for 2 groups, I might run it again. So it could be quite cool. Cool. All right. So main topic for today was looking at how androids can affect gameplay and what things you as a warden need to be aware of when a player wants to play as an android. So I was really fortunate to have a bit of a conversation with Waco Matrixo, and he pointed out there's a few things he likes to keep in mind when when someone wants to play as an android, thinking about like why would you want to play as an android? And it can be centered around like the fact that androids in Mothership can do more in certain situations than humans, and so they can do things that humans can't do physically, things that they can't do mentally, and things that they can't do digitally as well. And thinking like within your session, like how you can make sure that people have the opportunity to do that. That's a thing to keep in mind. And if there's a chance to change something where, okay, an android can do something here, then, and that feels appropriate, then why not? So if it is like a terminal, is that you could say that there are some like ways of plugging into this particular terminal or something of the like. Also, being an android provides a different approach in these situations. So if something is, incredibly dangerous to humans, so if it's like a low oxygen environment, then that means that you can do that. And then the other thing is that you are considering things like morality and humanity through choosing to be an android. Like, what does this mean? What is your relationship to humans? What will you do and what won't you do? And he mentioned that it's a great opportunity to have a secret agenda. So he was saying that if the characters are all human, then he might necessarily use a secret agenda just because it doesn't always make sense to do that, depending on the adventure and if the adventure has a lot of objectives. But if there is an android, he said that it's like compulsory for him, mandatory to actually do it. And of course, this brings up a lot of the android doing the corporation's kind of like dirty work and doing things that the players are not aware of, or has objectives that the players are not aware of, and creating tension within the group. So those are some things to keep in mind. Like if you are playing an android or someone's playing an android in your group, okay, well, trying to figure out like a little bit about why and what can you set up for their objectives to make the game a little bit more interesting. Because sometimes you might find like an adventure becomes a lot easier if you're an android or you have an android in your group. And that's also another thing to keep in mind, is that, okay, well, they can kind of go anywhere. It's like, okay, well, if they can go anywhere, does that make it very easy? So I thought about some kind of like different types of androids that have been mentioned in a couple of the supplements, but I'm just about if there are other supplements that actually talk about different kinds of androids, apart from the fact that situations where it's like, okay, here's a particular character and this is the type of android. These supplements talk about kind of like types. So the first one is actually a recent one that I mentioned a few streams back, which is called Androids Unleashed. And it is a pay what you want. And it does talk about these like android subclasses. Let's get this. Yeah, here we go. So I think it was Joshua Kramer who's created this, and he has divided up into 4 subgroups, subtypes of androids. So from left to right, you've got the mechanoid. You have indicated that your internals are robotic. You're fundamentally a machine. You're impervious to disease and radiation, but cannot make use of biological or chemical enhancements, such as stim packs or first aid kits. Restoring health wounds may be required jury rigging or robotics. You also automatically succeed on saves to safely install cyberware. So that's one end of the spectrum. But then you've got cyborg. You have indicated that your appearance is mechanical while your internals are biological. You look like a machine, but you are a human inside, a real brain, functioning lungs, your original digestive tract. Wherever they once came from, this amalgam is a painful one. You have an introduction of 1, but you must pay 1.5 for medical services thanks to your disturbing construction. Yeah, so that's quite fun, quite grim, I would say. Then the next one along is human-like. So you have indicated that your appearance is flawless. You can pass as a human for a time. Work with your warden to determine a false class to represent as. So you can choose to be a scientist. Use that class's trauma response until revealed. So I guess what they're trying to do here is that you don't want to be calling for a trauma response where that it might trigger the android's trauma response, but the characters and the players don't know that this person or the character is an android. So, yeah. Use that class, yeah, and then you may expose your identity by ignoring your trauma response when it's triggered. It is also revealed automatically if you take a wound or are scanned with a cybernetic diagnostic scanner. So this one could be quite fun, and Strands just mentioned that I used a human-like one in my campaign for one of my androids, played it perfectly when he got wounded. So the wound, how it got revealed, I'm guessing in that situation. So that could be a lot of fun playing that, and I like that sentence there about the class. The trauma response doesn't reveal the class of the android. And then this last one here, so I'll just move this a little like that. The last one here, Infiltrator. So I'd be curious about if people have got an opinion on this last one. So Infiltrator, you have indicated that your appearance is flawless and your internals are biological. Same as a human-like android, but you are an especially advanced model based off a real human brain scan. You are not revealed as an android if you take a wound, nor if you are scanned with a cybernetic diagnostic scanner while alive. The only way to tell is to kill you and fish logic core out of your false brain. Yeah, like made to be as close to being human as possible. So I thought it's kind of interesting. I wonder whether people would be like really desperate to play something like that. And I'm not too sure what the difference or the advantage would be over having this like human-like android. So, yeah, clearly, perhaps in his games, he's had situations where they want to be even more secret than previous. So, yeah, I'm not too sure about why the need for Infiltrator, because human-like could almost be like this Infiltrator anyway. So, not too sure on that one. But yeah, I really like these subclasses and how he's gone into the work about dividing them up, as well as providing some little bits and pieces around, okay, well, if you're this type of android, this is what it means, and this is what some consequences manufacturally. What is the consequences mechanically? Yeah, I kind of feel the same strand. I'm not too sure what the point of the last one is, to be quite honest. Yeah, I think, but perhaps they've had games where they wanted an android that can get around being detected if they were alive as an android, and it was not until they got killed that it was evident, and after almost like after an autopsy that they could even be detected as an android. So I'm not too sure, to be quite honest, but I quite like the first three in particular. These are really great, where they talk about the type of android, what it means, what it mechanically. I love like the little things like you must pay 1.5 times for medical services. Like that is great sort of like thematic mechanics there. And then this restoring health wounds may require jury rigging. So dangerous. So you can obviously play off that as a warden. You can go, okay, well, it is, this could potentially be a problem if you're doing like a patch up job or no one has the skills in robotics. But also if someone within your crew can later learn that skill as robotics, it could be quite fun too. And then, yeah, I just really love the trauma response doesn't get revealed. I really love that sort of stuff. And then the other thing that is a little bit aside to that, he's created a D10 alternative android wounds and has them for each of like the main wound types that you would find in the player's survival guide. So for what would be bleeding, yeah, So you can get some examples of what might happen. And of course, like depending on what type of Android you are, you might have to like adjust these a little bit too. But yeah, but I think I would be very tempted if I was to, like if someone was playing in my game, is that, okay, you can choose one of the first three. I probably wouldn't include the last one. So you're 99.99% human, except your logical and brain, yeah, in your brain. It also works for after death things. But yeah, I just don't really understand about why that makes why you'd want to do it. I think it would only really be sort of like espionage, like using it for espionage reasons. That's the only idea that I can really come up with off the top of my head why you'd want to have a subtype like this. I can't think of another good reason, really. Thanks, Trent. Noted with that. So that's one supplement that talks about androids. And the other one, which is not directly like subtypes and as explicit explained like that, is walks of life. Cool. Thanks, Ben. Nice to have you. And then the other one, yeah, walks of life. So I've mentioned walks of life a few times before. So these aren't really like Android subtypes like the previous one. This is more like backgrounds. Oh, there we go. The dog appearance. The 5 Android background mentions are one, which is this cognitive. We've got cognitive. So the description there was around like an assistant data processing unit, sort of like a support unit that helps do specialist tasks for whatever reason. You have this discontinued Android model. In this case, it's more of a background than a type of Android. So this could be any of the types of Android. So you've got pretty like wide scope to figure out what your Android could be. And then you've got neural sleeve. So uploaded human consciousness into a robotic body. So I would say this is more like, what was it here? It was that. Is that one? Into robotic body. It could be like mechanoid. You could probably argue for cyborg maybe. Or that one. And then you got synthetic, so cheap replacement for human labor or companionship. So this is has a pretty wide definition as well. And then utility for dangerous human work. So this time would not be anything there. Yeah. My dog's having a nice bark at something that I can't quite see. But yeah. So these are a couple of supplements that I picked at. Directly mention androids. Directly mention, particularly Androids Unleashed, talks about the different types and also what it means mechanically. And then the walks of life talks about like the backgrounds to androids. So it's a little bit different in that particular case. So, but it does like help you fill in what your Android character could be coming from. Like what purpose does your model of Android have? Maybe a background about like the character of that Android itself, and also a little bit more about like how it could work. So when you're thinking of like neural sleeve versus like some of the others. So yeah, I thought I'd mention that about androids. It's something that just because they are a class is that it's kind of interesting because you do end up playing them differently. You do end up, there are of course mechs that quite different for Android versus humans. So all of these things are really important to keep in mind when you're about to play or about to run games with androids. I thought I would talk about it a little bit and have it kind of as on record, but kind of like something that I wanted to think through myself. So I thought I would share this particular thing because I know that the next game that I have in person is one of the players does want to play Android, and he'll be a new player to Mothership as well. So I'm going to see if I can put this information in front of him and he can make some decision. Okay, well, which type of android do I want to be? So yeah, we'll see how that all goes. But yeah, that is everything that I had on the agenda. So it's a little bit of a shorter one than, because normally there's a lot more releases, to be quite honest. And every so often we get some questions, things like that.